Y'all can hear me, right? I'm not muted or anything. Okay. Hi, everybody. I got nice sunshine. I am just waiting for more people to log in before we begin the webinar. So bear with me. I actually need this all hang out for a minute. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm just giving people another minute to log in and join our webinar tonight. We'll give it just a little bit, just a little longer. Time's it. When we hit 5:32. There we go. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. For those of you who don't know me, try to stay out of the sunshine here. I'm Susan Greeley, the National Director of Wellness Services at Castle Connolly. And I want to start by saying to all those who are celebrating Passover that I'd like to wish you a very happy celebration in spite of everything. I know it's a year unlike any other. And again, thank you for also being here right now. So I think we all recognize how very important it is to connect with others at this very strange and it's called a very strange and stressful and disorienting time for all of us. So again, I'm happy you're here and that we can keep working on our collective well-being together. During tonight's webinar, you'll actually still be able to submit questions to our speaker, and then we will be following up by sending you the webinar recording as well, just as a heads up. You'll also be receiving a link to an 8-week online resilience building course, and we're able to offer that complimentary to all of our members, so I do hope you take advantage of that. My goal ongoing is to keep supporting you with practical and helpful and tangible tools that and give you information to continue, like I said, working on our collective well-being and really help people through this crazy time and beyond. So to that end, I will start this evening's webinar on ensuring emotional well-being during uncertain times by introducing our speaker, Dr. Gabriella Farkas, who's there with us. So Dr. Farkas is the medical director of Pearl CCPHP, as well as the founder and medical director of Pearl Behavioral Health and Medicine PLLC here in New York. Dr. Farkas has been a contributing author in over 10 peer-reviewed publications, and she's a licensed psychiatrist in both New York and South Carolina. She currently holds positions as the independent physician consultant for MetLife Disability, attending psychiatrist at Northwell Health in New York, and is a visiting scientist for the Feinstein Institute for Medical Research in New York. With that, I will turn over the evening to Dr. Farkas. Thank you, Dr. Farkas.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, Susan, for the warm introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm hoping to be useful and hopefully provide some helpful insights into how to go through this very special time. And I certainly don't think a lot of us have experienced anything more uncertain than what we're going through right now. So thank you, CCPHP, for the opportunity. So let's get right into it. When I was preparing for the presentation, I went to my therapist in our practice, and I asked them to come back to me and let me know what kind of themes they're seeing emerging during their sessions right now with their clients, right? And what I noticed was that all of them pretty much came back with the same themes and the same topics that they're discussing with their clients during their sessions, again, in the past few weeks, and you know, as we speak, probably also. So when we say, and we say this so much, that we're all in this together, right? And to me, this really means that we're not only experiencing the same challenge, the same problem right now, which is the coronavirus pandemic, but we're also experiencing the same personal issues, and the same themes emerge for all of us. And to me, when we're saying we're all in this together, it also gives me hope to focus on the fact that we're also gonna get through this together and hopefully come out better at the other end, right? So what are those issues? And I'm hoping this is gonna be helpful to also everyone on the call to experience that whatever you may have been going through, you're not alone with that issue, right? So the main themes that, again, my therapist told me was, you know, first of all, health, right? Obviously, the coronavirus, fear of getting it, God forbid, actually getting it, going through the illness, going through hospitalization. I mean, probably all of us know someone who has the infection, which is really scary. No one's safe from it. Recovering from the illness takes a really long time. So primary and number one concern is health, right? But then also relationships, right? So we are on lockdown, sheltering in place, quarantining, which is very isolative. So we're cut off from friends, from family, from loved ones, or we are getting a little bit too much of them, right? So we're like stuck together, sort of you feeling. And actually in China, they've already been seeing higher divorce rates after all the sheltering in place they had to do. So it's an interesting problem about relationships, right? Work life, right? So we have to figure new ways of being productive just like we were before, but from a home office with the family around. God forbid, you know, getting laid off like a lot of people have been, which affects finances negatively, or just if you think about your investments trending the wrong way, right? It can be very stressful. And next theme is the lifestyle, right? So we are losing our routines, our habits, our places, our people, you know, for the time being. And we are doing those routines, habits. We are visiting those places and hanging out with those people because it works out for us, right? And we just don't have access to any of that right now, or just, you know, a fraction of that right now. And the next and the most important topic for me, closest to my heart, is obviously mental health, right? So what we're seeing in our practice is that many people who have never experienced significant mental health issues are coming to us with very significant new onset anxiety, depression, sleep issues, just the worry about everything and the uncertainty of what, you know, when this is going to end and what is happening. And the other thing we're also seeing is that whoever has had a mental health problem prior to the pandemic, they're decompensating, and it's a big setback. They don't have access to their coping skills, their routines. It's harder to see their doctors. It's harder to get the medication filled in a safe way or get it delivered. It's just a lot of the logistical issues. So mental health is also definitely an area where we are seeing significant issues. So I was thinking of framing this whole experience as the 5 stages of loss, right? So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the author who described these 5 stages everyone goes through when losing someone or something important, right? So this applies to grief as well. So first, we are in denial, then anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And we'll talk about these phases. It's important to know that this is not a linear sequence. We kind of go back and forth between these stages. And it's very interesting how I think these 5 stages apply to the coronavirus because of all the loss that we're going through. So what could be the example, right? So denial could be, this is not happening and this is extreme, but some people are still fighting it. They're, you know, thinking it only happens to other people. I don't have to do the sheltering. I don't have to wear the mask. I don't have to do any of that, right? That can be denial. You can also think about, I've just had a client, I actually got so upset, a chiropractor somewhere in the city, practicing as usual, seeing clients one after the other, maybe asymptomatic and just spreading the virus. You know, it's just beyond my understanding how some people, even healthcare workers, don't necessarily get it, right? So that's denial. And then anger, right? When is this gonna end? How long do I have to do this, right? Anger at China, anger at the Chinese people. I mean, you know, extreme things we hear in the news. Another one is bargaining, right? Okay, so I'll do the sheltering for 2 weeks, but then I'm really done. I have to go back to whatever. You know, we hear those voices. My own grandmother, I was on the phone with her the other day, and she went, I'm just going to the bank. You don't understand. I have to go. I'm just only going to the bank, and you know, just not understanding that this is not the time to do that. Depression. So these are the moments of desperation, deep sadness, right? We're all experiencing. And honestly, I think the further we go into this crisis, the mental health aspects are going to emerge more and more. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the next phase of this crisis, a whole slew of mental health problems and a whole mental health crisis we are experiencing collectively. Now, the last phase of this, you know, grieving process after a significant loss is acceptance, is when you realize you have no control over this, this is happening, and you're losing that important person, you're losing, you know, as we said, the life you've had before. This is happening, and I can be part of the solution. And this is the productive part. This is where you actually can come out, you know, positively from the crisis. So in the Harvard Business Review, just a couple of days ago, there was an article from David Kessler, who was actually the co-author of Kubler-Ross, and he's a grief expert. He actually founded grief.com, which is a wildly, you know, popular website. He came up with the 6th stage of loss, right? So it's a very interesting article. I highly recommend. He describes how working with Kubler-Ross, they always felt like there has to be something beyond acceptance. The whole process doesn't stop at acceptance. And so he identified the 6th stage of loss as finding meaning, right? So when we talk about finding meaning, to me, finding meaning means, how can I come out of this a better person than I was going into it, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. How can I come out of this a better person than I was going into it? And so striving for that, what if we use this time to better ourselves, right? To better our lives, and to really take this opportunity as a forced stop. Okay, we didn't ask for this, but we can strive to make the most out of it, right? So let's see a couple strategies in terms of how we could do this. So when it comes to our health, you know, it's a very interesting thing. I'm noticing in my clientele that a lot of people in New York City actually enjoy this hard stuff, because we're used to being spread so thin and running and rushing and being stressed all the time and being anxious all the time. And I mean, now we're also anxious for different reasons, but I'm noticing a lot of my clients actually enjoy being home and living a little bit of a slower life, right? So how can you be gentle to yourself? You can just, you know, make sure you have a good routine. You have a wake up time, which is pretty much, you know, similar every day. You have a bedtime pretty much similar every day. So you keep a healthy routine, a healthy circadian rhythm. You can make sure you eat healthy. You cook a nice meal. Maybe you have more time for that right now. You can focus on your bodily sensations. Make sure you eat when you're hungry. You don't wait another hour, but you actually, you know, give your body what it needs. You drink when you're thirsty. You seek an online yoga class. You do some meditation. Again, just the slowing of our lifestyle for these couple weeks can result in us paying just better, kinder attention to our bodies. When it comes to relationships, right? So the issues we went through at the beginning, what if we use this time to connect, right? And to seek out those 1 or 2 people every day I'm gonna call, or I'm gonna jump on a virtual coffee break with, right? Or I'm just gonna pick up the phone and make sure that my loved ones are okay. And and make sure that I practice being gentle with others and providing support. Work and finances, right? I mean, I'm by no means an expert in finances, but I just feel like it's an interesting opportunity for a lot of people to actually come out again, maybe with a different career path, right? A lot of people are stopping and questioning, what is it that I do every day? And is it really what I was meant to be here for and what I enjoy doing? And a lot of my clients, I'm seeing them really contemplating this. And I think it's just important to keep an open mind to all the possibilities that there may be for us in this, again, a little bit forced up. And when it comes to our lifestyle, same idea. What if we took this opportunity to create new routines, new habits? Maybe we'll discover new places, and maybe we even connect with new people, right? So like kind of like a makeover of our lives in many ways, I think is a possibility for us right now. And when it comes to mental health, which is obviously my dearest field to talk about. So again, seeing the opportunity in the crisis, right? So how can we ensure our mental health and mental well-being, I prefer saying, during these difficult times. So so mindfulness, I'm sure, you know, a lot of us have heard this term. The idea is that basically any activity can turn into a mindful activity. And what do I mean by that? So basically you can just involve, you know, a full awareness to slowly and paying attention to the detail, very, you know, attentively go through the experience. And what do I mean by experience? It can be just how you eat, right? How you eat your meal. Mindful eating is a big topic. You can search it on Google. It's a very interesting meditation, actually, how you pay attention to the tastes and the smells and the view, like just the aesthetics of the food, right? Mindful walking is another one, right? How you pay attention to how your foot hits the ground, and just a very different kind of awareness you can apply to any daily routine activity that again you do maybe every day. The idea is that you want to focus on what you can control, right? And you want to let go everything else, because a lot of the worry that people experience is about things that they don't have control over, and that's what perpetuates the worry, right? So what you can control, you can keep the 6 feet distance, you can, you know, wear the glove, wear the mask, pay attention to what you're touching, you know, shelter in place, again, not leave the house unless you have to, or you're, you know, just going outside to exercise. Focus on what you can do. Don't focus on what the neighbor is doing, because that's just gonna make you anxious, and you can't control that, right? I think it's also an important thing to just make sure you acknowledge your feelings, right? So don't try to fight it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to think, oh, others have it worse. I shouldn't be feeling this way. The last thing you want to do is invalidate your experience, right? Like you want to acknowledge, okay, I'm going through this really hard time. Maybe others have it worse, but my experience is valid, and I'm going to pay attention to myself, take care of myself, nurture myself, and just really have an understanding and an acceptance for my experience. Practice gratitude, as always, a very efficient tool, right? For any kind of hardship, is to just think about, you know, the fact that everything I have in this moment is enough to get me through this, right? And hopefully, you know, without getting too spiritual, but hopefully we don't get a bigger task that what we're able to cope with, right? So gratitude is a big part, I think, of, you know, getting through this together. And then a breathing technique, I mean, it actually came out of the OMH, is the 4x4 breathing. The idea is that it's impossible to focus on a negative thought and on your breathing at the same time. So what you want to do is focus on your breathing, so you won't be able to focus on that negative thought. And by the time you're done with your breathing exercise, hopefully the negative thought is gone. So this is the idea, is that you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold that breath in for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, then you rest for 4 seconds before your next inhale. So that's just a really good way of fighting the negative thoughts as they come up. And I thank you all for your attention. We are absolutely here for anyone who needs any kind of, help in terms of just talking to a professional. Please, if you feel like you're in need of that, we're here to help.
Fabulous. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Farkas.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to open up for more. We actually intended to have a longer Q&A if needed. I don't see many questions coming in, and please feel free to use the Q&A. I'll go ahead and start with the ones that I see. I have a couple in different places. There's the chat, and I'm going to address those, and please use the Q&A as well. The first one, how do we help others? I think that's a fabulous question because everybody wants to help themselves and their family, immediate family. And I think there's also this, when we're alone at home, so many people are like, how do I help? So what's your thought on that?
Pick up the phone and be a good listener. We like to give advice. People, most frequently, they don't need advice. They need you to listen and to validate their experience. You don't have to jump to, okay, what's the solution? There may not be a solution, So just be there for each other, listen, and validate each other, I think means a lot to a lot of people because it's a rare experience.
It's a very rare experience too. And even with this, such as what we're doing now, I'm going to interject my little 2 cents. I know even personally, I've become adept at using Zoom, never thought to use that for any social interaction or with your family. And I think even if you suggest new creative communities, call it, of your friends, let's say you know of somebody or a group in your community who could use some outreach, it's a great way to do it, is scheduling new types of Zoom luncheons. If you're part of any volunteer groups or foundations, there are ways for people to come together and still support each other.
Virtual coffee breaks.
Yeah, exactly. Here's one. What about the theory that there never really is closure to grief, especially with death? Studies of military families, but applying to things such as this virus crisis.
I mean, again, I would love to say something 100% reassuring. I can't. It's this is something that is surely going to result in a sense of loss for a lot of people. You may be grieving actual, victims of the virus. You may be just grieving life as you knew it. We all know our lives are about to change. We don't exactly know how, but we all feel it's never going to be the same. It's like how airports never look the same after 9/11, right? Like it's just fundamentally changing the way we live. And again, I don't have the crystal ball, but it is true. We'll never be the same. I agree.
Right. And acknowledging it. And then getting to that point of acceptance, I think, is...
And not fighting it because it's not something we control, right? Just surrendering to whatever's coming.
Right.
Again, we're all in this together.
Completely agree. Yeah, and we could talk about that alone and grief for, obviously, we know, hours probably. And each person's experience with it is very personal and individual. Yet in this situation, we are collectively experiencing this grief. So that's a good one. And that's why we're here, honestly, and, supporting one another. This is such an important one. We do need TV, I agree, and we have to stay informed and aware, and but it's so alarming in all caps, and it is, and it causes a lot of anxiety. So how much, of staying informed is too much? How do we manage that and not let it?
I would just turn that TV on after a while, like I do. Actually, I listen to the news because I want to stay informed. I maybe listen to it, I would say 15 to 20 minutes a day. And then I have the information that I need, if it's the daily briefing of, the governor or the president or whichever, you want to listen to, but you get the numbers, you have the idea, you get the trend, and you don't have to have it on the whole day and perpetuate this sense of, the doom and the...
Right. No, and that also creates a lot of anxiety. I'm with you. So I guess we'll both say limit the one time a day and keep it at a specific, a lot of people have been saying to me they love watching Governor Cuomo, like that's their, they'll tune into that every day. So something like that, set your own rule for that one time a day and do limit it, period, because I think more is not better in that case. Another one, this is so overwhelming, I don't want to get up in the morning. How do you remain optimistic?
I mean, if anyone, I think spiritual practice is especially important right now, exactly because we are kind of powerless and we all feel the same, about how we're really not really able to influence a whole lot of this, right? So a spiritual practice, I think, would be important. If nothing, religious or spiritual, you can just do a meditation. There are really good videos on YouTube, even about positivity and how to stay optimistic, and a little bit of a guided meditation, I think, helps. And if you find one that you really like, you can go back to it twice a day, or you can seek out a new one every day. And it's just one of those new habits maybe we talked about that you're going to incorporate into your life, because it has a very positive effect on physical and emotional level. You can journal, right, to like kind of get out those negative thoughts out of your system. And again, just be gentle to yourself. I think the least you're trying to fight it, and I know it's kind of counterintuitive and it sounds hard to do, but the less you're trying to fight it, the more it just flows through you and then leaves, so.
Yeah, yes, no, I completely agree. And that morning time, even for myself, and this is what I happily share with others, is starting your day with positive thoughts. And we need help with that. If you wake up and all of a sudden have the anxiety, or somebody turns on the news, and I completely agree with you, starting your day with the meditation or gratitude journaling, even just 3 thoughts of something you can be thankful for, the smell of your coffee, that's always mine.
Yeah.
So things like that. Yeah. And
And just accepting it's going to be a hard day. Maybe you're not going to get out of bed,
Yeah,
that's the acknowledging how you feel, and be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, I love that. That's very true. The next one, I read that this crisis is going to move into different phases, and will take a lot more time than a lot of us, I think, not that we're prepared for. Nobody's really prepared for, but especially for the vulnerable, how do we prepare? Probably mentally and
Mentally.
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, probably in all senses.
I mean, again, I think a good daily routine. I mean, just what I did when a couple of weeks ago I realized there's no way back, and I'm stuck at home for who knows how long. I wrote down a little cheat sheet for myself with all the daily routine that I want to do every day, and I'm trying really hard to go through that every day. And I think that's a good way to keep yourself balanced as much as possible emotionally. Physical exercise is part of it, meditation is part of it, so you have a good baseline balance in your body, again, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Right. And if you need those daily checklists to remind yourself, I think that's a great way too. I agree.
Right.
It can come automatically right now.
Just as simple as not to forget taking the daily vitamins, to keep your body as healthy as possible. And again, if you need a cheat sheet, I do. I think it's, it helps. It really does.
I do too. Even if I write down, take 3 breaths, seriously, start sometimes. And back to that, the breathing, if you notice at times, if you're watching the news and feel anxious, if you tune into your breath and take some long deep breaths, as you were saying, it's game changer in that moment, at least in that moment. And we need constant reminders even throughout the day and daily. And again, from my perspective too, maybe you agree, Dr. Farkas, it's really having this day by day view, and
one day at a time, and not worry about what's coming, who knows.
Exactly. Here's one. How can you support a friend and her husband when they both have the virus? He's in the hospital and she's home alone, who's sick, but probably not.
Call her every day, ask how she feels. Again, you don't have to give advice, just listen, right? She probably has a lot of anxiety that she would love to share.
Absolutely. Back to that, really helping others.
Listen and just pray for them, whatever is in alignment with how you live your life and what you believe in. But awesome. I think just sometimes we think it's so complicated to support someone, and it really is. Sometimes it's just lending your ear and not trying to, be smart or say the right thing. Just be there for someone. Be there for someone,
Absolutely. 100%. It's the best way to help others. Here's more on the medical side, I'd say. How can, and this came up, I think this is common. How can you tell if your shortness of breath is anxiety or related to COVID? And I think this is not specific to this one person. A lot of people, I've heard this repeatedly, that if they feel like they can't take a full breath in the last few evenings, that cause for alarm.
So the way we approach any physical symptoms related to psychiatric illness is that first and foremost, we want to rule out the medical causes, right? So I would encourage you to call your primary care doctor, talk to them, make sure, you know, they go through the checklist and they ask you about other symptoms that may be indicative of COVID, right? And if you need to have a checkup or you need to, you know, go somewhere to see a doctor, you'll do that. They test you, you're negative, then you know you don't have it. Otherwise, there's not really a way to know. And it honestly, it can be both, right? I mean, it's scary, but you can have the virus and you can be anxious. What I can tell about shortness of breath related to anxiety is that it usually comes in bouts. So it wouldn't last for, let's say, several hours. If it's a panic attack, it comes untriggered. It's pretty abrupt. It's very noticeable. It's not gradual. It's not like, oh, I have, you know, this like heaviness on my chest and then all of a sudden I have breathing difficulty. If it develops over the course of hours, it's most likely not anxiety. Anxiety is abrupt. And again, usually pretty dramatic, but then it doesn't last that long, right? So that's just the general, you know, the rule of thumb. Obviously there are you know, exceptions and everyone's experience is a little bit different, but we never want to say, oh, you're just anxious. You always want to rule out the medical first, right? What I know about COVID, and I'm not an internist, but what I know about COVID is that the shortness of breath comes a little bit later in the illness. So it's probably not going to be a standalone problem. You probably have had the fever by then, the cough by then, the several days of malaise or arthralgia or the myalgias, right? So the pains and the discomfort before you develop that. But again, I'm not an internist. So I would just make sure if you have concerns for, you know, having the virus, you've been exposed or you're just not sure, definitely talk to the internist doctor first. And if you're having that a lot and you're negative for the virus, then we're here to help because you probably need some help with anxiety.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was very helpful for me to understand. I also am going to say, you know, as members, reach out via Spruce. I'm pretty sure at this point, most are on like 24/7. If you're nervous, as you just said, reach out to your primary, whoever your doctor is. Thank you. That was really helpful. The next one, I'm happy for this question, is Dr. Farkas or her team available to members of Castle Connolly? You know, so yes, you can explain that.
We are, yes.
Exactly.
Here's here on the screen, the email and the phone number. So we are available for psychiatric medication management, talk therapy, group therapy that we're doing on Zoom right now, very successful. We are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Clinical services sometimes go even earlier or later, so off hours, weekends, and we partner with CCPHP, so everyone has access to the same amenities of the same day, next day appointments, the priority rescheduling, and the send solution program.
Just to clarify, though, it is a separate membership, right?
Right.
So it's the Pearl CCPHP is a separate membership from their membership with their primary care doctor. Okay, any advice on keeping one's sanity when caring for a toddler and teleworking?
Yes.
She can relate.
That's a tough one, and your nanny can't come, right? I was just saying to a friend, I don't know if it's harder for single people or with you know families with young children, because that's definitely brutal.
Yeah, that is.
I wish I could, you know, I don't know. I mean, I went through the same thing, you know, when my kids were small, I was in the middle of, like always, some career move, and I just learned to block out the noise, make sure they're safe, keep them outside, but still try to focus. You just develop your strategies, you know, you use the nap time really well. You don't, you know, you're really focused during that 1 hour if you have the nap time still. Ask for help if you can, if you have family around. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. I'm certainly hoping your employer is understanding of your situation, you know, because your productivity, I don't think it's realistic to expect it to be the same then at the office away from your toddler. So
completely agree, and knowing you're not alone in that situation.
right.
Yes, exactly. Because it's
I mean,
very stressful.
people are sick, you know, like how do
Yeah.
they stay productive? They don't. You know, people
Right.
have to understand this right now.
Right. Right. And again, you're not alone in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's somebody. We're older and found somebody younger to buy food for us, but it makes us feel guilty putting them at risk. And there are so many people really suffering. How do we deal with those feelings? Yeah,
So to the first part of the question, I'm sure that person is very happy and feels very, you know, like the meaning of life is to connect and help others, right? So I think it's a very meaningful experience for that young person. As long as they wear the mask, they wear gloves, or they just, I mean, it's very simple, right? You just keep your hands clean and you don't touch your face, right? That's it. As long as they do those precautions, just the fact that they're going to the store every day doesn't mean they're going to get the virus. They just have to be careful, right?
right.
And I'm sure they are helping you because they're so happy to do that, you know? So the second part of the question, I mean, same idea, you know, other people's suffering is very hard. And if you're a human being, that is going to cause you distress, and it's only healthy. And again, you pray, you know, you try to deal with it spiritually, whatever practice works for you. Again, I wish I had an answer to this, you know. It's hard. I think it's only normal to feel sad about what's happening. And I tell my clients, I just had someone the other day who we talked about options, and I told her, you know, I don't think you have, I mean, I'm going to keep my eyes on it, but I don't think you have the kind of depression we want to medicate away, you know, like you have a reaction to what's happening, and it's very normal, you know, and you don't want to, you know, be a zombie who, you know, doesn't feel those things. So
right. And expressing it and helping each other through
right.
it.
But it doesn't mean you want to keep it inside and suffer. You want to talk it out. You want to seek help if you need to. You want to connect with other people talking about it. So still being resourceful and you know, make sure that you get the support you need.
I think that's a great segue to the next question, which is, are there any online support groups to talk with others? Because so many are very isolated right now.
That's a really good question. I mean, just like in general, honestly, I'm not sure. What I know is that what we do have an online support group for our clients. I'm sure. I mean, you know, if you check on Facebook, maybe Meetup. I'm not sure. There may be something, you know, general.
Right. And if we
Yeah,
come up with,
I think it's easier to go through an organization, which probably, you know, is trying to recruit, you know, people for such a thing, than just in general. Honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay, here's one I have
Maybe
to.
we can start one.
I know, I was thinking that, like, we gotta think about that, right?
Seeking, other people are seeking too.
Yeah, and I do agree with the Facebook thing too. You're amazed at what's out there on, you know, some private groups and various things. So
Yeah.
it's not a bad idea to look there.
Maybe groups you're already members of, you know, and then you can just come up with the idea and recruit the members of that same group, you know, maybe better than complete strangers.
Exactly. I agree. Okay, so I'm trying to read through more questions here. These are great. This is I'm taking them in order. This is okay. Are we making too much of this? 50,000 people die per year from the annual flu, and we hear nothing. 40,000 die daily in not daily. Sorry, die in car accidents. We hear blah blah. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is a voice out there. I understand. I mean, people died before the coronavirus, right? And these days, if you test positive, you have had an underlying condition you may have died of, they consider you dying from the coronavirus, right? So I certainly understand. I think it's about 10 times more lethal than influenza is what comes out of the statistics. And I think the primary concern is the overloading of the healthcare system, right? In terms of staff and in terms of equipment. So the reason why this is dangerous, and the reason why we're making such a big deal out of it, and the way we say it in medical circles is that we want to be overreacting than underreacting, right? So we know we're probably and hopefully overreacting, you know, but the primary fear is that so many people get sick at the same time that the healthcare system is not going to have the capacity, neither in terms of staff nor in terms of equipment. So that's the fear.
Got it. Okay.
That's the flattening the curve, and to make sure that there's not an overloading of the healthcare system, and people don't have to die like they had to in Italy, where the doctor has to decide who gets the ventilator, right? So that's a scary situation.
Extremely.
So
that's the whole point. Thank you. Excellent. So what's the proper way to bring in groceries to the house? It all makes me very anxious. I think that just,
I'm a psychiatrist.
I know, right?
So there was a discussion about whether or not you have to sanitize your groceries. What I've heard people doing, first of all, people leave it at the door. They don't interact. They don't come into your space. They leave at the door, and you take it from the door. What I do is that I just take off, I mean, obviously I do the groceries for myself, but I remove the packaging and I throw that in the garbage right away. I don't sanitize the food, you know, one by one. Honestly, I'm not an expert on what we're supposed to do exactly, but I think reasonable precautions, you know, you probably don't have to Lysol the cucumber, and, you know, but you have to wash it, right? Like, so, and you have to keep your hands clean. And when you prepare the meal, you have to make sure the surfaces are clean, and just common sense, I would say.
Mm-hmm. A lot of that came through, because I think the key issue there is understanding, you know, these smart practices that we all have to adopt. And if it's still causing anxiety ongoing, then reach out for help, because if you're doing all the right things, such as that, the way you're disinfecting and handling it, and it's still causing anxiety, maybe that's a time to, as we said, like, reach out for more professional help.
Right.
Yes. Okay. I'm seeing questions in two different, do you know of any regular podcasts that, I think we already had that, right? Different podcast. There are, so this is about podcasts, and that's something, there are so many things. I'm going to say this too that I know of. If you go out in search of podcasts and other, you know, helpful related programs out there, there's a lot.
So I'm going on podcasts, right? So this is all coronavirus.
Yeah.
Put in COVID-19. I would again just caution against listening to too much of that, right? So you may want to be a little bit selective.
Very discerning.
It says what you need to know, common conversations, daily, closer look. So I think it's a fine balance between getting the information you want to have in order to feel like you have a handle on, you know, like understanding what's going on, but also like too much, you know, information overload, and it's just a lot of negativity out there. So just careful with, you know, not tipping over to information overload and feeling more anxious than you were before, you know.
Exactly. There's a fine balance there. There's plenty out there, plenty of options for those who have the time. I know a lot of people have a lot of idle time, so maybe they have time to explore, dip and listen to various things that speak to them.
But I think it ties into knowing yourself and knowing how your mind operates. And some people love information and thrive with it. Some people get overwhelmed much faster. So maybe this is the time to figure out your preference, you know, and just really listen and tune into your stuff, and just turn it off when you feel like it's time.
Okay, and here's one that's kind of personal to somebody, and I think applies to many others. He says he's seeing a grim future of his business, and that's keeping him up at night, many losses to deal with. I'm doing all the indicated exercises, but nothing's a relief in that area of his business and
that's very hard, and I hear you. And again, I wish I could, you know, be more encouraging. I mean, there are all those loans out there. I'm sure you're discovering, and you're trying to be proactive and working with your bank and submitting the application and making sure you have all the papers for that. You know, using all the support you can use in terms of, you know, loans and grants. But other than that, I know it's hard, and it's going to be a forced pivot for a lot of people, right? So maybe you haven't been planning to change, what your business is about. Maybe you have to. And when I talked about just keeping an open mind, it may be something you're going to look back at and think it was a blessing. There are a lot of stories pre-COVID, how people were forced to make career changes and they ended up benefiting and they ended up being grateful for their boss for laying them off. Like, I don't want to ignore the stress you're going through, but again, just keeping an open mind on what may come and maybe a better future. But again, I wish I could reassure you. I know for a lot of business owners, it's very stressful, and entire industries are going to be affected in a negative way. So that's definitely a reality, unfortunately.
It is.
But again, I mean, so the adjustment we're all going through, we use a lot of medication for sleep these days because people who have had anxiety before, they have a lot more anxiety right now, and we just use more medications. And there are a bunch of clients I was trying to get off of medication pre-COVID. I'm not doing that right now, and we just all agree this is not the time. We'll do it later. Priorities, right? So if you feel like your sleep is broken, you're kind of up all night, losing your mind, like a series of nights, call us, because you may want to be on medication right now, and it's not a bad thing. The bad thing is not sleeping.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you.
That maybe just temporary, and we'll worry about getting you off the medication later, but
exactly.
Keeping our sanity, I think whatever it takes is important right now, and not expecting ourselves to just go through this by ourselves without help, because it's very hard.
Mm-hmm. To that, just briefly, Dr. Farkas, can you explain again to somebody asked how many sessions are included in the membership? Can you, I just want you to answer about the membership.
Right. So we provide psychiatric services like any outpatient practice. So it's usually an intake appointment, what we call, which is a 45-minute appointment at the beginning when you and your clinician, you guys get to know each other and you talk about, what has been bothering you and what the issue is. And then we come up with a treatment plan, which may include medications, individual or group therapy, or a combination of all these. And then we usually follow up once a month with your doctor. If you're seeing a therapist, that's probably a little bit more frequent, maybe once a week. It's kind of individual and tailored to what the individual needs, but it's a pretty typical psychiatric practice. So it's usually once a month with your prescriber and once a week with your therapist. And then again, what the membership, I mean, Susan knows this better than I do, but what the actual membership, and we take insurance for the professional services. That's very important to say. The CCPHP membership fee, like you paying that for, the internist practice, that covers for the amenities. So that covers for the same day, next day appointment, the priority callback, priority rescheduling, the send solution. We have the weekend availability just for concierge members. So those are the perks that come with the membership. But for the professional services, we take insurance if we're able to work with your plan. I mean, right now, all of the plans cover for video. We set up the service as a video practice years ago, which is something now, a lot of doctors are trying to convert to. But if the professional service is covered by the insurance, we definitely take that plan. Right now, again, most of them cover, but after the emergency, it's going to change, unfortunately, back to just select plans covering.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just checking the time and I'm not seeing more questions coming in. So unless I do see any, I'm just going to there's a couple comments in the chat that I want to mention because I like this. And one, I think that this is helpful, just saying how back to the news and overload on negative media. Instead of watching it all the time, reading it, like picking and just reading it, because it's not as emotionally jarring.
Because you actually have to consciously pay attention as opposed to coming to you without you even noticing. Yeah.
So that was one good thing. And then this is a colleague of mine and I love her input. She sets her Alexa to remind her every day at 8 a.m. to be thankful for something. So it's
I love that. And that's a very good habit, you can, and you can set that alarm and great idea.
So with that, I want to thank you very, very much. I think this was one more.
Okay.
What can we do for at-home sick healthcare workers?
I mean, take good care of them, right? While
Yeah.
taking good care of yourself, right? I mean, if they're home, it means they're hopefully not, needing hospitalization and they're getting through it by themselves. Just like you would take care of someone with the flu, cook that soup, make that tea, be available, let them rest, take care of stuff so they can rest. Um, apparently it's a pretty rough experience. People are very tired, they have a lot of pain. It's very physically challenging. So whatever you can do to make their lives easier, during these days.
I know, I just got goosebumps. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. And again, this I hope was helpful to all who joined, and thank you, Dr. Farkas, it's fabulous. Yeah, I want everybody to stay safe and well, and as a reminder, you'll receive the recording of this webinar. And again, with that, I hope people take advantage of this new 8-week online course for building resilience. And I also want to remind people that, of course, as part of the SEND solution, the health coaching, reach out to me anytime for that ongoing support as well. Okay, and
Thank you for the opportunity, and be well, stay safe, everyone. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.